Yeah, this is the others versus Bitcoin. And this has been interesting to me for a while now because it's starting to get up to the top of the range. Now, is it going to break through the range first go? Probably not. We're going to end up counting probably to a 13 or maybe even that will be a 13 count. Okay, we probably pull back again. But at some point, I feel like this channel, because of this bottoming effect that we had here, is going to break through. And that's the kind of alt season signature that people are looking for.
The signal for alt season might already be here. Raoul Pal has been tracking one chart closely. Not Bitcoin, not total market cap, the relationship between altcoins and Bitcoin itself. Right now, that chart is pressing into a level that has defined entire cycles. A level where altcoins either fade into irrelevance or begin to take control of the market. It has not broken yet. The structure still suggests hesitation, maybe even one more pullback before anything decisive happens. Zoom out, and the picture starts to change. This is no longer a weak market trying to recover. It is a market that has already built a base. Momentum is shifting quietly. Positioning is still defensive. Sentiment remains deeply negative. That combination rarely lasts for long. And if this range finally gives way, the next phase does not look like slow upside. It looks like rotation. It looks like expansion. It looks like the part of the cycle where most investors realize too late what is actually happening. If you're watching this, take a second to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. Are we on the edge of alt season, or is this just another fake out before a deeper move? Thanks for the support, and enjoy the video.
Our financial conditions index corrected somewhat, but that's looking okay as well as the dollar and rates back off. We're seeing the ISM going up. We're seeing US liquidity conditions rising. It's like everything is green here in front of us. And that's a decent backdrop for the market, considering the market sentiment is literally some of the worst I've ever seen. We've had the longest period in history where the fear and greed index has been below 10. And even in the equity markets, which didn't really correct a lot, some stocks did, the equity markets have been massive kind of sentiment, negative sentiment, record put buying, record underweights, all sorts of weird stuff going on. So the market was primed for something. Then, the news out of Iran has helped the situation. It was something I thought was likely going to be the outcome. And I still think the outcome may be more positive than people expect, which is a more broader, longer term resolution to the Iran situation, where, if you play out the game theory, it's in everybody's interest to reach an agreement where Iran has no nukes. They stop funding Hezbollah and stuff like that. In exchange, they get the removal of sanctions over time, which means their economy can boom, because Iranian economy is full of great business people, and they've always been a big part of that region. It means that oil prices come down, which is a win for everybody, because everybody's using as much energy as possible to generate as much intelligence as possible right now in the AI wars. So it's kind of a win-win. Saudi wants it, Israel wants it, the US wants it, Iran probably wants it. But there was part of the Iranian regime that didn't, and maybe that'll change. So I'm pretty optimistic here over everything. Now, the other caveat is people will say, yeah, midterm election years are usually negative, or at least they trade sloppy and choppy most of the year and then rally at the end of the year. That may be the case for equities, where it's sloppier than people imagine and then finishes strong. But for crypto, I think it's kind of the catch-up trade.
Now, actually, because I want to touch on that, because you mentioned midterm elections, right? And what happens if, because, on Polymarket right now, it's trending, it's looking like, the crowd is favoring the Democrats to win big in the midterms, right? What do you think, how do you think that impacts crypto? Is it, not much of an impact if the Republicans lose in the midterms? How do you think that plays out for the crypto?
The only thing that matters is passing the Clarity Act. And Donald Trump was involved, Scott Bessent's been involved. I mean, everybody is pushing for that to get signed. Then it's in the law, and it doesn't matter. So they know that they owe the crypto lobby, who are the largest sponsors of the Republican administration at the election, that they Republicans owe them this. And therefore, they will support them in the midterms and for the next election too. So this is the big one that needs to happen. Once that happens, pretty hard to walk back any of this stuff. So I think they know that. Now, the other interesting thing about when we get kind of a mixed, when we've got a Republican or Democrat administration with the opposite in the House, what you find is markets tend to be better. So, it's not something we should be fearing. And for crypto, it's this one thing. Crypto really, it's about liquidity and how much liquidity is needed in 2027. That's not clear yet. Could we have another down market in 27 and a stronger market this year? It's possible, not clear. Feels like the structure of crypto markets has changed as the structure of liquidity has changed somewhat as well.
Because I think this crypto train is moving along so fast, it's not stopping, right? The BlackRocks, all the Franklin Templetons, it's just too big to just not take power, right? I mean, I feel like it's just so obvious.
Yeah, well, look, because every bank is talking about it. So yeah, they had the fight over stablecoin yields, and we'll find out the outcome of that in the end. But every bank wants to build on the rails. Every payments company wants to build on the rails. Every asset manager wants to tokenize their funds. We're hearing that the NASDAQ wants to move to blockchain rails. We're hearing that the DTCC is moving to blockchain rails. I mean, what the f***, if this is not the biggest signal in the world, the entire financial system is moving to blockchain rails. Some of it will be private permission chains. Some will be layer 2s. Some will be on layer 1s. We'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. But the game is happening and there's no stopping it. And then we had the incredible change of events that happened towards the end of last year, which was the sudden rise of agents. And AI agents have completely changed the TAM of crypto and the internet itself. It's gone from being a maximum of 8.5 billion humans, or whatever the number is, to now infinite agents. And we're already seeing agents with wallets and agents doing transactions and agents being trading bots and agents. So it's almost like blockchain was not built for us, but it was built for the agents. It works. It's machine money for machine minds.
What Raoul Pal lays out here is not a reaction to short-term price action. It is a framework built on liquidity, macro conditions, and positioning. Global liquidity is pushing higher again. The dollar is softening. Financial conditions are easing. At the same time, sentiment has collapsed to extreme lows. That disconnect matters. When fundamentals improve while positioning stays defensive, markets tend to move faster than expected. There is also a structural shift happening underneath all of this. Institutions are no longer experimenting with crypto, they are integrating it. Banks, asset managers, payment networks, even core financial infrastructure are moving toward blockchain rails. Add to that the rise of AI agents interacting with on-chain systems, and the total addressable market expands beyond human users. This is no longer a niche cycle. It is a transition into a much larger system.
Yeah, this is the others versus Bitcoin. And this has been interesting to me for a while now, because it's starting to get up to the top of the range. Now, is it going to break through the range first go? Probably not. We're going to end up counting probably to a 13, or maybe even that will be a 13 count. Okay, we probably pull back again. But at some point, I feel like this channel, because of this bottoming effect that we had here, is going to break through. And that's the kind of alt season signature that people are looking for. There was another version of this, which is, if we go to, what was the other one I was looking at? Yeah, the ETH Bitcoin cross. Put this on Twitter the other day. Very interesting chart. Let's put our demarks onto this, just to see if it gives us any other further signal. For some reason, not showing demark. Oh, there we go. So there's no signal. There's no topping signal. We're nowhere near a count on the daily basis. That's kind of interesting, right? Because it's exactly what happens when the business cycle turns higher. We've talked about this. The ETH Bitcoin cross starts performing once the ISM is positive. We did put in a 9 earlier, and its risk limit, the dotted lines are still there in place. We kind of came off that. Mm-hmm. We've got a good chance of breaking out here. Now, the bigger pattern is still a long way away, but the bigger pattern is still constructive. I think. What's interesting is, contrary to the narrative, oh, ETH's terrible, everything else, ETH has basically kept the same ratio as Bitcoin since 2017. People are like, oh yeah, everything bleeds against the king, Bitcoin. It's all bullshit. When you look at a chart like that, it's absolutely clear that ETH has maintained value. Now, the question is, to me, and I'm writing a long article about this, in a future world, seeing a chart like that, and then seeing a chart like Bitcoin dominance over time, right? Bitcoin dominance over time is a series of lower highs and potentially higher lows. This could be a flag pattern. We don't know. But what it's telling us is Bitcoin's share of the overall crypto market is falling over time. Now, what is the trend rate? Let's see if we can do that on a monthly chart and put that indicator I've got. Let's see if I can do this. My scripts, my log regression channel monthly, because that one was working before. No, it's still relatively flat. Oh, because it doesn't go back far enough. I need to change some of the parameters. But over time, it's been roughly falling. Why is that? It's because Bitcoin's total addressable market is basically global savings. It's a store of value. Smart contracts are basically all economic activity on the internet or in the agent world. So over time, they will end up as a basket of layer ones, particularly, to be more valuable than Bitcoin. And I know that seems contentious to people, because certainly in the last cycle, it was like, you're either a Bitcoiner or you're a shitcoiner, and all of this nonsense. People just don't understand that smart contracts is a technology platform. Bitcoin is a store of money. It's a whole different store of wealth. It's a whole different thing. But when I look at the chart of ETH versus Bitcoin, I look at the chart of dominance. You think about what it means, what it's actually saying. You think about the rise of the agents and the use of smart contracts and payments platforms and stable coins and all of the things. It's telling you that probably over time, the structure of crypto markets will change. The more functionality that chain has that's usable via an agent, so the more programmable, flexible, adaptable that is. So Sui comes to mind because of how it's structured. It becomes quite useful for agents to do, because it has like the whole walrus thing for memory and all of that kind of stuff. Solana's great for this. Now, Ethereum layer 1, probably not. Maybe fine for stable coins, but for agent speed, not necessarily. It's good enough for now. Layer 2s, sure. Base is doing a good job with that. But they're unlikely to be as fast as some of the more performant chains. But again, it's not only going to be the richest, the fastest. There's different benefits, and what DeFi it's interacting with, what it's trying to do, all of those things. So I just think it's always been a multi-chain world. It always will be a multi-chain world. And our job is to try and make our bets accordingly. I think it's much easier to bet on the layer 1s, quality layer 1s, than it is trying to choose which layer 2s accrue value or which applications accrue value. So if you think about Hyperliquid, probably going to do really well. It generates lots of revenues. People love that, even though actually revenue is not the deciding factor. But maybe with something like Hyperliquid, it's a very valid point. But it is a single-use chain. So it's never going to have the breadth and depth of activity that Ethereum or Solana will have. Just can't, because it's built for basically financial markets,
right,
in its particular way. And that's great. And it generates lots of profits, and it's great. So specialist chains are more complicated. In the specialist chains world, there's only one other competitor to Bitcoin. It's not a competitor. Call it a younger sibling, which is Zcash. It's the only other kind of store of value that has any relevance when Bitcoin exists, because it's got the privacy element, and it's basically used as Bitcoin's mechanics. So it's interesting. And I can understand that a share of global wealth would use Zcash. What percentage? That's what the bet is, and you've got to figure that out in the market. The other one that stands out somewhat differently, but yet to be proven, is BitTensor, because that's not really a proof of stake, proof of work. It's kind of proof of AI. It's like kind of proof of intelligence. It's somewhat different in structure, so it's an interesting one to watch. But there's not much space for a whole bunch of layer 1s. In the end, I think the race is, and I would leave BNB out of it, because it's really a it's really it's not a decentralized chain, but it has plenty of use case. Same as Base. They got use case. Nothing wrong with that. I still think it's Ethereum, Solana, Sui, and I don't know who else in the layer ones that really has a big chance if I look down the list. Now, HBAR, whatever, there's a bunch of other ones, AVAX, there's some, but in the end, we'll have to see how differentiated they are and what works.
The second part of Raoul Pal's analysis brings everything into focus. The altcoin versus Bitcoin chart is not just approaching resistance, it is compressing against it after a long period of base formation. That kind of structure does not appear randomly. It reflects accumulation, rotation, and a gradual shift in capital flows. A breakout may not happen immediately, but the setup is already in place. At the same time, Bitcoin itself is showing signs of hesitation. Price is holding around $71,000, but momentum is slowing as it approaches resistance near $73,000 to $74,000. Indicators remain neutral, with weak trend strength and no clear conviction in either direction. The market is not breaking down, but it is not breaking out either. It is waiting. And then there is the geopolitical layer. Tensions between the United States and Iran continue to inject volatility into global markets. Recent failed negotiations triggered a drop in Bitcoin alongside a surge in oil prices, reinforcing the link between crypto and macro risk sentiment. At the same time, broader concerns from institutions like the IMF highlight how fragile global liquidity conditions can become under prolonged conflict. Yet despite all of this, Bitcoin has held its range. Each geopolitical shock has led to sharp reactions, followed by stabilization and recovery. That pattern is important. It suggests the market is absorbing stress rather than breaking under it. Now, combine that with what Raoul Pal is pointing to: a market with improving liquidity, deeply negative sentiment, structural adoption accelerating, and an altcoin market pressing against a critical breakout level. This is where cycles tend to shift. Not when everything looks perfect, not when headlines turn bullish, but when the structure changes quietly and most participants are still positioned for the opposite outcome. The question now is simple. Is this the early stage of alt season, or the final hesitation before it begins? If Raoul Pal is right, then this phase won't stay quiet for long. The structure is building, liquidity is shifting, and the market is starting to move before most people are ready for it. So the real question is, are you positioned for what comes next, or still waiting for confirmation when the move is already underway? If you found this breakdown valuable, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. And in the comments, let me know, are you betting on Bitcoin dominance, or are altcoins about to take over this cycle? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.